You're here today to announce a big unleashing of the power of AI, I believe. So it's fair to say you very much see this as a government as an opportunity more than a threat.
Yes, I think so. This technology is coming anyway. It's coming internationally. It's going to come to the private sector in the way that it's used. And the question for the UK is, how do we take advantage most? So we're publishing an action plan today, which really has two things at its heart. One is to make sure the UK is a welcome home for the many billions of pounds of AI investment that is happening. It either happens here or it happens in another country. We want that investment here for the jobs, for the skills, for the technology. But the second thing is the applications. The UK has had a big question mark over its productivity for many years, and that's related to our economic difficulties. So if we can use AI, both in the public and the private sectors, to increase our productivity, then that can bring economic benefits for the whole country.
I don't think anybody would doubt that over the long term, AI can boost the economy as a whole and can therefore boost jobs as a whole. But similarly, is it fair to say that in the short term, empowering AI might cost jobs?
It's a disruptive technology, but I think it's too pessimistic to just use this as a kind of job count mechanism. Let me give you an example. Later this morning, I'm going to visit a school to see an AI teaching assistant, which is saving teachers about 3.5 hours preparation time a week where they use it. That's not replacing teachers. The teacher remains at the heart of the lesson. But if you speak to any teacher, they'll tell you about workload, about repetitive processes, about the amount that goes into lesson planning. If you can have an AI teaching assistant, which was developed by the government, then that can free up teachers' time, give them their Sunday night back, and make the teaching job more rewarding than it currently is.
Could you use AI to reply to journalists, perhaps, going forward?
Oh, that's quite tempting, but I'm not sure. But what we are finding is all sorts of applications that we wouldn't have thought of.
I mean, there's a bit of a joke there, obviously, but you know, there's one report that official government departments can use it to reply to emails. As you said, it can be used in teaching. A lot of people saying kids can use it for parts of their homework. I mean, is there a worry that this goes too far and that humans then drop the ball a little bit on the level of detail and focus that we should be having to our daily tasks?
The approach we should have is test and learn. Mistakes are going to be made in this. It's a new technology. It's going to be disruptive. Not everything is going to be plain sailing, but you've got to ask yourself, as you go through all these objections, if you stand back, do you want this to be developed elsewhere? Because it's going to be developed anyway. Mm-hmm. What good would that do the UK? And if we tried to press a pause button and say we don't want this technology, all that would happen is this country would lose out, and that's something we're not prepared to see. We are ambitious for the United Kingdom because we've got huge assets in this kind of area. It's a new kind of economy. We're more of a service-based economy. We've got good skills. We've got fantastic universities. We produce graduates and postgraduates with skills in this field more than other countries do. Let us use these advantages to make sure that the wave of investment that's going into this technology around the world, that a decent proportion of it comes here to the United Kingdom.
Tulip Sadiq has referred herself to the Prime Minister's Standards Advisor. When do you expect to see his response? And is his response final? Is it waiting for that response and following it regardless?
Well, he's independent, so I can't govern his timetable, but it's important that he's independent. Let me set out how this process works. When we came into office about 6 months ago, we produced a new ministerial code, and that ministerial code increased the powers of the independent advisor. It was something we'd promised we'd do in our manifesto. Tulip Sadiq has referred herself to this person so that all these allegations can be looked at. He then produces a report about adherence to the ministerial code or whether any rules have been broken, and that's the right way to do it.
I guess the question it sounds like you're saying you'll wait for that report. And
yes,
you won't
we will, yeah.
act before that. Was there vetting? I mean, you probably were involved in it, given your role in the Cabinet Office. Was there vetting and consideration for all people appointed to the Cabinet, but in particular the anti-corruption minister?
Well, everybody goes through a propriety and ethics process when they're appointed. I know what I told the propriety and ethics team because they ask you all about your interests and so on, but I'm not party to what anyone else has told them. So, but yes, every minister goes through a process like that.
Is it, you know, over the last decade, we've talked a lot about these sorts of issues with you know, various predecessors of yours in the cabinet. Often it's said, you know, it's not just about avoiding a conflict of interest, it's about avoiding the perception of a conflict of interest. I mean, does that apply even more clearly in the case of your anti-corruption minister?
Look, I think she's done the right thing by referring herself to the independent advisor. Let him look through all this. He's independent. I'm not independent. I'm a member of the cabinet. Let the independent advisor, whose job it is to do this, look at these things and let us see what he's got to say once he's done that.
And I guess my final question on this, because I understand you're trying to wait for the final report, but in your personal opinion, if it is decided that she didn't explicitly do anything wrong or have knowledge of doing it, but that she has benefited from somebody else's corruption, a family member's corruption, no less, is that a problem?
Look, you're taking me into, I know this sounds like a politician's answer, but hypothetical questions about what might be concluded here. And it won't be me, in the end, who makes this judgment. It'll be the independent advisor, because it's his job to do so, and that's the right way to handle it.
AI couldn't have given a better answer than that.
There you
Spot on. No, I'm kidding. I understand. We'll wait for the report, I guess. We'll see what happens in the meantime. Let's talk about China. Obviously, the Chancellor's high-profile trip there. Is it fair to say that you see China as less of a threat than the previous government?
I think it was right that the Chancellor went. I think these calls saying she shouldn't have gone were wrong and a mistake. Actually, that would have been a bad move not to have gone. And we've got a trading relationship with China. And so it's right that we try to maximise that, but we also have a security position as well. And all the way through this, you have to balance security with your need for investment and economic growth. And that's the kind of clear-eyed approach that we'll take for this. But we do have a trading relationship with China, just as we do with many other countries around the world.
Rishi Sunak put China in the bracket of Iran, Russia and North Korea, a four list of countries that he saw as a threat to the United Kingdom. Is it fair to say that the Labour government, the Keir Starmer government, doesn't see China in that same bracket?
Well, with the Tories, it ebbed and flowed. The economic and financial dialogue that the Chancellor took part in over the weekend, this was something started years ago by the Conservatives, but it never really took off, partly because of COVID and partly because of the internal position-taking that was going on in the Conservative Party over China. We don't have that internal position-taking going on. So we come at this asking, how do we protect our security and how do we maximise investment and look after our own economic interests too? You've got to balance those two things, and that is the approach that we'll take when dealing with China.
Very quickly, final question. England versus Afghanistan cricket match. Lisa Nandy said it should go ahead. Do you agree with that?
If that's what Lisa Nandy said, then I'm sure she's right.
Pat McFadden, thanks so much for joining us. Good to see you this morning, as always.